Like many of you, I was skeptical of Elden Ring Nightreign, and if I hadn't got the opportunity to play the stress test over the weekend, I'd probably still be a skeptic despite all the positive previews. But I'm here to tell you, it's legit and it's good. Reality is we probably won't see another FromSoft Souls-like game for another few years, perhaps even next generation, so Elden Ring Nightreign is going to be a good little filler in between the two, especially if you like roguelikes. So what is Nightrain? Nightrain is a co-op, basically you and two others, 3 players maximum, go out into a world and hunt bosses. Now you go into sort of old Elden Ring areas that have been mixed and matched, a lot of reused assets, but the worlds look different. That being said, if you go to a castle, you'll be like, okay, I know the layout of the castle, but it's just not normally in this spot. And during this hunt, you have 3 days. On the 3rd day, the 3rd night, you have to face the boss, which in the beta, the stress test was this 3-headed Cerberus dog that would then split into 3 dogs. It was really rough. I did end up winning, but it was at the very last run I had on Sunday night, so I was very hyped. But beyond that, what do? What about day 1, 2, and 3? Pretty simple, actually. You fly in, you land with your lads, and you just start hunting enemies. Souls are very valuable. You need experience because you need to level. Speaking of leveling, it's been streamlined. You don't pick stats anymore, you just straight up level. So I was playing what was known as the Wilder, basically the Knight class, the very generic class, and every time you'd level up, you'd get more strength, more stam, more vitality. It was a very tanky-ish build. Versus the mage, who would get more FP, mana, and of course more int and whatever else their main stats are. All your stats raise a little bit differently depending on which class you play, but they work really well. And as I said, it's so streamlined. You don't even have to think about it. You just go to a bonfire, click level up if you got enough souls, and you're good to go. Now, this is still Elden Ring. I don't want to confuse anybody. It's hard. And your stats at the beginning, like, don't try and go fight any bosses. You should probably farm a few camps and get some equipment. Your HP bar is basically like, well, it's a grower, not a shower. You need to level up. So you go around taking out these camps, and there will be chests and items. Your inventory is very limited. Your equipment is very limited. I don't even think you can switch armor because I didn't see it, but you can switch your weapons and, of course, get a shield. In addition, you can get like fire pots, that little healing item that you can throw down and kind of heals everywhere, knives, you know, fire oil, stuff like that. You got items like that, but the main thing, the main roguelike progression thing here, at least in the game, is getting new weapons, higher tier weapons. So you'll start with basic equipment. Again, I was the knight, so I started with basic greatsword and a shield. And it doesn't actually, like, your weapons don't go, let's say the greatsword won't go like +1, +2, +3. Instead, it'll be, it starts gray, goes into green rarity, which boosts its strength, goes into blue rarity, which boosts its strength further, then purple, and then orange. I don't know if there's anything beyond that. I actually don't even know if there's orange, but I have definitely seen purple. And you get these weapons by, of course, clearing out the camps, opening up chests. Normally, they'll be pretty weak if it's a weak camp, but you can find various, like I would switch to an axe or maybe a pike, depending on the situation. This did change later when I got certain items for meta progression, but we'll get into that in a bit. However, the best items, the best buffs, would always come from the bosses. You kill the bosses and it kind of drops this like crystal orb that you interact with, and you got 3 choices. Normally it'd be like 2 weapons and then like a buff, right? Like you get plus 10% HP, or your flask heals for more, and then your other 2 choices are like a blue axe and maybe like a purple dagger or something. Important to note that you will be keeping none of this when you leave the level, so take whatever you want, drop whatever you want. It doesn't actually matter. The most important thing probably in this is if you have teammates you know and you like, and you see an item like, you know what, I have a Duchess. Duchess is more speed-based evasion. I'm not going to quite say Bloodborne Hunter, but it's very similar. And you see a double dagger or a dagger, and you're just like, well, I'm not going to use that, but Duchess might. So you grab it and then you drop it, and Duchess can use it. At least I think. And that's basically where the progression in-game comes from. Leveling, weapons, items, and then certain buffs, like I said. And while the days are going on, there is this flame, but you can think battle royale, but it's not quite like that. It just circles in around you, and if you're caught in it, it will slowly burn your HP, so you have to get out of it. And all it's doing is leading you to the boss for that day. So for that night, I should say. So night 1, you'll be led to a spot to fight a boss. For me, it'd be like the centipede boss. Sometimes it would be like the tree knights. It varies. I think it varies depending on what you are hunting and which area you are in. So it adds another layer of like, okay, so now I have to worry about enemies, and I also have to worry about the map because it's closing in on me. Oh, and also I don't have my spectral steed, so I can only run. which is like cool, brah. So if you're not on top of the fire, you will probably die. If you die, you lose a level, which can be devastating. So I recommend not dying. And while it is very similar to Elden Ring, I do think there's been some adjustments for the more casual players. It's still very brutal, still very hard, but every class now has 2 skills. On top of the weapon skills, on top of your spells, all that other stuff that you get based upon your weapons. I was playing again the knight, and I would have like a grapple hook. And this would basically pull the smaller enemies to me. And if it was a big enemy, like a boss, I would actually just be pulled right to them, which meant I could get into the fight a lot quicker, which I liked. This might not be for everybody because, again, that means you're going to be right under something's big-ass foot, but that's where I want to be as the knight. And then he has an ultimate attack where he, like, it's, I don't know, a shoulder-mounted rocket or something. I'm not exactly sure. You basically hold your fist up and there's like, boom, and a big explosion happens. And normally, even against bosses, it will stagger them so someone can get that crit in and pull it out. Another cool ultimate I saw was from the Guardian, which is effectively a tank. He couldn't even really dodge. He could just like backstep, but he would just jump into the air. He's this bird guy, by the way. Crazy. I don't know if there's any character customization. I hope there is because I want to make my own characters. Anyways, comes diving down, just a big dive bombing bird, and boom, destroys everything. Awesome skills. Makes it a lot easier for new players, like I said, but also for people who have played it, it gives us a lot more options. And while I'm on the subject of skills, I do want to talk a bit about the meta progression. So after you beat, and I want to be clear as well, this stress test, a lot of stuff was not in it. Like the round table hold was almost empty. Outside of the characters you could play, there was so much empty space. There was no blacksmith, no shops, no NPCs outside of what you could play, nothing. So I think that this thing's going to be a lot more filled, and I think there's more meta progression than we got to experience. That being said, what we got in the game was after you either survive or you die, you got these skill runes that you could equip to your character. Now these are skill gems maybe. I'm not exactly sure what they're called, but they came in different colors. It was like red, blue, yellow, and green. And depending on your class, like the Wilder, I think had 2 blue slots and a red slot maybe. And then the Guardian had 2 red slots and maybe a green slot, but you needed to have the right slots to equip the runes. And the prime reason I was using the Wilder is because I got an awesome rune that when I used my hook shot, I was able to pull myself at the enemy and do an attack. So like a spinny attack right off of it. And I was like, cool, I want that. That sounds awesome. But the only downside was I had to use a greatsword. So I tried it. It set my sword on fire and I did a spinning attack. So I'm really hopeful that not only is there like one for just the greatswords, but maybe I get one for my halberd or maybe even a different move. And I'm also curious now what the other classes have for those types of abilities. So it's not just like your base ability, but it improves your base ability and adds an extra buff. I'm really excited for that progression. And while we didn't see any other progression, there was in the bottom corner, there were like these runes, basically like souls that you would bring back with you. And I had like, I don't know, 1,500 or something. Couldn't spend them anywhere. I'm wondering if it's just to maybe upgrade your runes or maybe buy some new ones. I'm not exactly sure because again, you're not upgrading your weapons to bring in. That being said, the runes could be like, hey, you get a +1 to all your swords you find and stuff like that. But there wasn't any, hey, let's upgrade your sword. Let's bring you in at level 3. Let's get you some new armor. It was nothing like that. So my biggest concern right now is the meta progression. And I think they should show that off a little bit more because while I do like the skill gems and skill runes, whatever they're called, I don't know if it's going to be enough to keep people coming back. The thing about Elden Ring is like, if I want a specific weapon, I can look it up online and go find it. In Nightrain, I have to get lucky, kill an enemy, and hope that it drops that type of weapon that I want out of the list of all the other weapons. And some people aren't going to like that. Me, I'm a roguelike junkie, so I'm all about it. And as of right now, I'll be honest, it was a game I had almost no hype for, and now I'm pretty hyped for it, especially because it's in May 30th, I think it is. We don't really have a lot of games around then. I think that is the perfect time for it to release. I'm hopeful, and I have no information on this, I'm hopeful that they do either another stress test or maybe even an open beta so players can get their hands on it to understand that it does play very well. It is very fun, but it's different, and you have to go in with that mindset or you're going to not like it. Anyways, I'm going to wrap it up there. Thanks for watching the video. Thanks for tolerating me for almost 10 minutes. Look at that. I could go for a lot longer. I really did enjoy this, but I'm actually playing something else right now that I'm enjoying as well. So anyways, later, Gators.